getting back to Ayuk here. So we talked about, some of the reasons why the Bills would not want to trade for him at the height of that with the contract and the extension and the cap space. And then just the mental side of it too, of having to pay that wide receiver one, and then you have that extra baggage. And maybe the Bills learned a thing or two from Stephon Diggs saying, like, we don't want to have to worry about that, right? Like, we want to pay other positions because wide receivers tend to be divas and they want too much attention. So we kind of let that run its course with Diggs. Let's go to Keon Coleman. Let's go to MVS, Chase Claypool. Let's try a different type of offense. And that leads me to this point now. We've been talking about this for months, about the philosophical change that we've seen from the Bills offseason. And I don't need to get into the whole thing again, but basically, in a can here, summed up, what I think the Bills are doing is they're trying to make opposing defenses respect their running game, because it really hasn't been respected since the LaShawn McCoy days. And that was before Josh Allen really ascended to superstar power. So ever since that, the Bills haven't had a respectable running game. Like, yeah, they've had some decent running backs, but this isn't the days of Fred Jackson and CJ Spiller. It's like, oh, we got to hone in on these guys because we don't have to worry about the quarterback. Brian Braum and Trent Edwards, they're not going to hurt us. But now you have Josh Allen. So these opposing defenses are just waiting for Allen because he is a key figure here. So I think that what they're doing is they want to make these defenses come up and respect that running game. And when they do, that's when you can pick them apart in the passing game. And the way I see it is you get the defense to come up. That's when you can take the top off with MVS. That's when you can hit Kincaid up the seam. You can go down the boundary, down the sideline with Keon Coleman. You can dump it underneath and let Curtis Samuel do his thing. You can go over the middle in the slot to Khalil Shakir. You can, hit James Cook or Ray Davis or Ty Johnson with those screen passes. So, there's a lot that the Bills can do with their offense here, where I think that if they go to get that $30+ million wide receiver, it would almost throw things off to the point where they really don't need Brandon Aiyuk. So that's why when I first asked you that question, should the Bills get Brandon Aiyuk? If you had to choose between yes or no, it's a yes. But when you really dumb it down, I'm almost trending more towards no, because I don't know if he fits in with what they want to do. Would he make them better? Yes. But for the reasons that we just laid out, I don't know. Are you still more of a yes than a no?
Yeah, I love him. So man, I absolutely am. I just think the way he would fit with Brady is just insane. I just think that the combinations that they could do with him in the backfield, what they could do with Curtis Samuel and Deebo Samuel, Khalil Shakir, God, that's so versatile. You don't have X's, Y's, Z's. You just have players that can play anywhere, including in the backfield with James Cook or Ray Davis or Dawson Knox or Dalton Kincaid, Keon Coleman. It just, to me, would be a matchup nightmare. And you wouldn't be able just to be cover Diggs. You would have to have some form like teams are able to do against the Bills late in the year, cover Diggs and see if they can beat you. And the Bills were able to beat teams other ways for the majority of the end of last season, especially. But now you have the running game to beat someone. You'd have someone like Deebo Samuel to beat you. Now you have Curtis Samuel with actually a good quarterback for once. We'll see if that actually is a thing or not, or is he just going to, I heard similar things with Jamison Crowder when he was able to do, and he just kind of flamed out. I think Curtis Samuel's still a step better than that, and we need to see it. But if he's able to do what I think he can do, him with Deebo Samuel, with the Samuels, and then with Keon Coleman, Kevin, there's just too much versatility. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, they're redundant." So what? That's what makes it hard to cover. You can't really say. You would have to stay you don't know what the game plan is going to be on a week to week basis. You could say last week I went all to Deebo Samuel. This week's going all to Keon Coleman. It's just too nice to where in the past, you're all right, it's we'll occasionally Gabe Davis will go off, but other than that, it's going to be Stephon Diggs. And if we get hit with the Gabe Davis game, then, whoops. But other than that, it's they were getting beaten to death by Stephon Diggs. But now you have two tight ends, as much as we just kind of broke down Dawson Knox's contract, you still have two tight ends that a good tight end one, top 10 tight end. You can rank, some people rank him fifth, some people rank him eighth. Doesn't really matter. You have a top 10 tight end, and you definitely have a top, say what you want about Knox. He is a top backup. He right now he's a 1B, 2A. Like he is a top 2 tight end in the league. It's second tight end on the top of that list. So the Bills have a lot of different versatility at each of their units. And then a lot of people would consider James Cook somewhere in the 5 to 12 range. Can Ray Davis elevate himself to be a good bet? Like there is just too much versatility. And if you add in Deebo Samuel, I just think that offense becomes borderline really tough to stop.
Wait, Deebo or Aiyuk?
Either. Like I like either. I guess I was talking about both of them, but I still want Aiyuk and I still want Deebo.
Yeah, and that's a hard thing because look at it this way. You would have all that I just laid out, right? Like the philosophical change that we're seeing and how they want to run the offense. You can still do all of that because it's not like you're going to be trading Curtis Samuel for Brandon Aiyuk. You're not going to trade Ray Davis. Right. You're not going to trade Kincaid. So it's like if you can add to that, why not? Because look at it this way. Do you want Brandon Aiyuk on your team or Chase Claypool or Justin Shorter? Because essentially that's what it comes down to. That 6 wide receiver right now is going to be between Claypool and Shorter. If you get Brandon Aiyuk, there's your 6 wide receiver. And obviously he would be wide receiver 1, push everyone else down. So when you look at it that way, it's like, well, obviously Brandon Aiyuk is better than Chase Claypool and Justin Shorter. But again, just for the other reasons here with the money, quintessentially with the money, that's what it comes down to. Like if you can make it work, then I'm all for it. But there is a world where I don't think that the Bills should go after Aiyuk.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's all about money, right? And then the other thing we didn't talk about is what would you trade for him? Like, right? So Deebo Samuel has a price. Brandon Aiyuk has a price. What when it comes to Brandon Aiyuk, what is your cost for him? Like, what would you say? All right, that makes sense.
Well, like I said at the outset of the show, that they still have that extra second-round pick that they acquired in the Diggs trade. And right now, San Fran doesn't have a lot of leverage because he's on an expiring contract. So because there's not a lot of term, they can't say, that's not enough. We want more. And maybe they will. So to that point, you could say, well, we do have an extra 6th-round pick from the Boogie Basham trade. You can have that as well. But I saw some people on Twitter saying that San Fran is going to want a 1st round at least, if not more. Again, like they don't have that big of a leg to stand on right now because he's on an expiring contract. If this was like the first year of a 5-year deal, then yeah, San Fran would probably be like, yeah, give me a 1st, give me a this, give me a that. But if he's going to be a free agent next year, I don't think you give up more than a 2nd-round pick, right?
There's no contract really to eat there. They could normally, San Fran could say, all right, we'll eat a bunch of this contract too for you. But there's really not the case in this. There's nothing there for them. Like the player's not signed. It's not a thing. Like and that's why someone asked, well, of course the 49ers aren't trade. They're going to say they're not going to trade him. Otherwise that price goes down, not up. So truthfully, sure. They're still holding out hope for a good contender to give him a 1st-round pick, because if a contender gives him a 2nd, that 2nd's the end of the 2nd. So, they're trying to make that discussion of like, yeah, we want a 1st because you're going to be picking, especially with Brandon Aiyuk, you're going to be picking 25 to 32. So like, yeah, like we would definitely prefer that you don't give us your 2nd, because now you're talking about pick 60. Like the Bills have the luxury of having their 2nd and the Vikings 2nd, which we'll see where that ends up. They always still have Justin Jefferson. We'll see how that roster looks. But that could be anywhere. That's a wide range pick. I predict that pick could be in the 30s or it could be in the 40s. Like we really don't know. So the Bills, will they hold on to that pick and then trade their own? So ultimately, so there's still at least a little benefit of the Diggs trade because you got rid of the player, you shut his cap next year so you can go sign somebody else. And now you upgraded a little bit coming up into the 2nd from your pick to wherever the Vikings will pick. This should be somewhat of a pick upgrade, you would think. But ultimately, that's the jockeying, right? If the 49ers are like 4th for Brandon Aiyuk, I'm sure half the teams in the league would be like, all right, yeah, whatever, we'll figure that out later. Even on a rental, like you would trade a 4th. So there's definitely a number to where teams are like, absolutely not, to where teams are like, absolutely, to where teams in the middle, where teams are like, ooh, I got to really think about if I can give out a 2nd. And I don't think any team's doing a 1st. So that's why they're stuck. They're stuck right now until they say, you know what, we have to we have to keep this player. Or like, we're going to have to take a 2nd. Like there's no other option, because I just don't think that someone's going to trade away their 1st-round pick. And eerily, like when the Bills were trading down, like a lot of people are like, why'd the Bills do that? I potentially still think it wasn't because they were deciding what player to take or, taking offers to move down. Like the Bills knew they wanted Keon Coleman. I don't think that was the issue. Were they entertaining what that 2nd-round pick was worth, though? Were they comparing not Keon Coleman to another receiver, Xavier Worthy, or whoever it may have been, and when the Bills were up on the clock, or I know you like Leggett, or when it comes to, I like Ladd McConkey. Maybe that wasn't the case. Maybe it was like, let's go into another day. And maybe that Debo talk was real because the Bills were like, now we got some value back with being able to take another player in the third. But now, like, we're going to be discussing, like, is our draft choice going to for sure be better than whether it's Brandon Aiyuk or Debo Samuel? I still think there was a little bit of that when the Bills were on the clock. They weren't looking to trade back for more picks. I think at one point they were maybe entertaining, like, what would a veteran cost? And the Bills could circle back to that at some point.
Yeah. So again, we made this point before, but like they do have enough capital to be able to make this move, right?
Yes.
That's really not the question. Like, they have the capital. They maneuvered around in the draft. They got Keon Coleman, and now they still have enough draft capital for next year to be able to make this move. But it just keeps coming down to the cap hit. Can you make it work? And can you get that extension to be feasible for both the player and the team?
Yeah, for sure.